What is going on, college football fans? Chris Kennedy here, coming at you with another college football related video. And today I'm going to be talking the 2021 Tennessee Volunteers. What is going on down in Knoxville and what I think that Tennessee program could do to help stop the bleeding. But before I do that, go ahead, please like and subscribe to my videos. I love talking college football. Could talk it all day, really, and any type of support you could give me would be greatly appreciated. So when you look back at 2019, I don't think any of us thought we were going to be here. I mean, Tennessee was on an 8-game winning streak. They had just beaten Indiana in their bowl game. In fact, they had the second longest win streak in the country behind LSU, so expectations were high in 2020. They start off 2-0. They're looking pretty good against Georgia in the first half, but then the wheels come off. They lose the game. They go 1-7 down the stretch. Their only win coming to Vanderbilt. And then the recruiting violations rumors started to surface. Tennessee went ahead. They did an internal investigation, found that there were violations that were committed. They reported that up to the NCAA. They fired Jeremy Pruitt. Their athletic director, Philip Fulmer, stepped down, and Tennessee had to start fresh. They brought in Danny White, UCF's former athletic director. He hired a coaching firm to do a coaching search. And he didn't look too far before bringing in Josh Heupel, UCF's old head coach. Maybe not a bad move considering what's in the future. But here's where we're at right now. Now, 2021, the recruiting class, I mean, it didn't go bad. They finished 19th nationally according to Rivals. I mean, it could have been a lot worse. You got guys like Aaron Willis and Katron Evans to highlight the class. And I thought Tennessee did a good job of handling that. I thought it was impressive. But it's starting to settle in now, and it's going to be rough, and I think most Tennessee fans know it's going to be rough. You got the transfer portal. A lot of kids are using the transfer portal these days, and right now it is littered with Tennessee players and productive players on that team last year. You look at running back Eric Gray and Ty Chandler are going to OU and North Carolina respectively. Your quarterbacks, Jared Garantano and JT Shrout are transferring out. Your offensive line, Wayne Morris and Jameer Johnson are getting out of town. On the defensive side of the ball, your best defensive player, Henry To'oTo'o, it looks like he's going to transfer to Alabama. I mean, all SEC guy. And then your safety, Key Lawrence, is also looking to get out of the place. So it's going to be rough. And I think most Tennessee fans realize it's going to be rough. When I look at that schedule next year, I mean, you got a tough game against Pittsburgh week 2. You draw Ole Miss out of the West. You always draw Bama out of the West, so that's tough. And then the SEC East is going to be great with teams, in my opinion, like Missouri, Florida, Georgia. So 6-6 is hard pressed. That would definitely be exceeding expectations. I think 4-8, 5-7, as hard as that is to hear, I think that's more realistic considering who you're losing and all the guys looking to get out of town. So, what does Tennessee do? That's the real question. On the recruiting side for 2022, at this point, you have 0 commits. You've struck out on Ty Simpson. He's going to Alabama. Taylor Groves and Cody Jones are going to Michigan. Those are 2 guys that you recruited that are going out of state. You're still going after Walter Nolan, the 6'5", 300-pound defensive tackle, 5-star guy, ranked 3 nationally in the country. But the fact is, and I know he's projected to go to Tennessee right now, but with everything looming out there and us not knowing what the NCAA punishment is going to be, I don't expect him to go to the school. And that's why I think you have 0 recruits at this point, because nobody knows what's going to happen with that Tennessee football program. Now, as far as the transfer portal goes, I mean, you are bringing in Hendon Hooker, and I think Hendon Hooker is definitely a plus for the situation that you're going to find yourself in. I pointed out already some holes that I think are going to be there on the offensive line, and having a guy like Hooker who's truly a dual threat guy and can make plays happen with his feet, that gives you another element, and an element that I think an offensive-minded guy like Josh Heupel can use. And I think Hendon Hooker might end up having a pretty good year. And yes, I think he's going to be your starting quarterback next year. But overall, it's just not going to be good. So where do you go forward if you're Tennessee? Now, I've been trying to think about this, and I mean, it's a tough situation. First of all, we have no idea how long the NCAA investigation is going to take. You know, they started the investigation. It can take anywhere from 12 to 20 months. That's kind of on average. Then it goes to the Committee of Infractions, where you see that there were violations, and then you hand down the punishment. That can take anywhere from, a week to 4 months. And then if Tennessee wants to, appeal anything, they can do that. So this whole process, I mean, it could take a year and a half maybe. In the meantime, people are scared to commit to Tennessee because they don't know what's in its future. So in my personal opinion, and look, I'm no Tennessee fan if you're not observant at all, but I think the best thing for Tennessee to do is to go ahead and punish themselves. Just come forward and say, you know what, we're going to remove X amount of scholarships. We're going to go ahead and get ahead of the game and place ourselves on a 2-year bowl ban. Why is that beneficial? Because then maybe the NCAA doesn't look as hard, because they look over at Tennessee and say, hey, they've already gotten rid of a lot of coaches on that coaching staff. They've already went ahead and tried to get ahead of this thing by putting themselves on probation within the university. So maybe they're handling things the right way. Maybe we don't really need to look into it. Maybe what they're doing is good enough. Now, you got to make sure that it is good enough and that the punishment fits the crime, because Alabama tried to do this in the early 2000s and it just wasn't enough. And the NCAA was like, no, that's not nearly enough. And they ended up handing out their own punishment. So I think if Tennessee did this would at least put it all to rest. Any player that does commit knows exactly what he's getting himself into. And the guys that are kind of in limbo right now that don't want to go to Tennessee, if there are serious punishments, they can move on as well. And like I said, don't expect much to happen for the football team in 2021. Just know that it's going to be a rough period in time. Now, here's what I'll say as well. Look, I love the third Saturday in October, and I'm pulling for Tennessee. I respect Tennessee's tradition. I think they're a great program. I don't like seeing them down as much as I love to see Alabama beat Tennessee. I miss those 6-3 football games, that 12-10 football game, that 5 overtime game in 2003, 17-17 tie in 1993. Those are the games I grew up watching. And they were great, and we haven't seen that in a long time. So I'm really pulling for Tennessee. But I want to know what you guys think. How do you think it's going to turn out for the Vols in 2021? What are your expectations for the football team? And do you think maybe them kind of putting out their own punishment would be something beneficial? Please let me know what you think in the comments below. Like I said, don't forget to like and subscribe. I appreciate you guys listening, and I'll talk to you guys again soon.